She was only 17 when he killed her because he saw her kiss someone else. I'm Alex Carter, crime reporter for the Brooklyn Tribune, and on July 14, 2019, I flew upstate to Utica to cover what should have been a straightforward tragic death and found myself at the center of a social media firestorm instead. Just before dawn, the Utica Police Department put out a bulletin. A teenage girl's body had been discovered near the waterfront park on Montgomery Street. When I arrived, yellow tape cordoned off cracked concrete steps leading down to the canal. A single spotlight cut through the damp morning air, illuminating the chalky outline where officers had removed the victim's remains. Nearby, her phone lay face down, its cracked screen still unlocked on a single, terrible image. The girl was 17-year-old Bianca Michelle Devins, bright, creative, known for pastel-dyed hair and vivid digital art. She'd been reported missing the night before by her mother, but there had been no sign of a struggle, no forced entry. Instead, the trail led to her friend and sometime boyfriend, 21-year-old Brandon Andrew Clark, who had attempted suicide in the very spot where Bianca died. When I spoke to Lieutenant Ramirez, he confirmed Clark's failed throat slashing and the murder charge now lodged against him. What stunned me wasn't just the brutality of the crime, it was what happened next. Within hours, photos of Bianca's body, taken by Clark on his own phone, exploded across Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Some users reacted with revulsion and sorrow, others with twisted humor or voyeuristic commentary. Conspiracy theories spread. It was a ritual. She was dealing in occult symbols. Peers shared Bianca's artwork in tearful tribute, only to be drowned out by trolls flooding the comments with gifs and memes. In the courtyard outside the station house, I cornered Bianca's older sister, Emma Devins, clutching a portfolio of her siblings' painted portraits. He was like family, Emma said through tears. We trusted him. Just feet away, a group of Bianca's classmates huddled around a phone, scrolling frantically through reposted images. We want justice, one whispered, but we can't stop seeing her like that. Across social networks, outrage coalesced into action. State legislators, spurred by public outcry, moved to draft Bianca's law, which would criminalize the online sharing of crime scene photos. By midday, the FBI had joined Utica PD, warning platforms that any failure to remove the images could constitute aiding a crime. Standing in that cold light, I realized this story wasn't just about a young life stolen. It was about how easily a crime scene becomes a global stage and how the very tools we use to connect can amplify evil. In the next part, I'll trace the timeline of Bianca and Brandon's relationship and reveal the moment when a kiss became a death sentence and an entire community's reckoning with digital violence. By the time the sun rose high over Utica, what we thought we knew about Bianca Devins and Brandon Clark had already begun to unravel. To understand how a young woman with the world at her fingertips could become the victim of such a brutal act, we have to rewind through the days and the texts that preceded July 14th. Bianca and Brandon met in art club at Proctor High School nearly 2 years earlier. She was 17 then, with candy pink streaks in her hair and a digital portfolio full of pastel portraits. He was 20, a recent graduate who drifted through odd jobs and struggled with depression after a suicide attempt in late 2018. Friends described their early bond as almost symbiotic. Bianca cheered up Brandon's darkest days, and he introduced her to underground music scenes and late-night graffiti jams. But beneath the graffiti and the laughter lurked warning signs that few noticed until it was too late. Classmates recall Brandon growing jealous when Bianca's online followers spiked after she posted a collaborative illustration with a popular local tattoo artist. He'd send her private messages insisting she delete the post. When she refused, he'd dissociate, going silent for days, leaving Bianca worried and texting her friends, "He's gone again." The white-knuckle tension peaked on July 13th. Bianca, excited for the annual Summer Street Fest, live-streamed her friends dancing under neon lights. Then, in a sudden pivot, she posted a photo of herself kissing another attendee, a moment of carefree fun that went viral among her circle. Within minutes, Brandon's replies flooded in. "Why didn't you tell me you'd be there? Who's that guy? Delete it now." Bianca laughed it off in a follow-up story, but the damage was done. That night she texted him to meet at the canal wall behind the skate park, their usual spot away from prying eyes. He arrived driving her mother's SUV. They argued in hushed tones, visible only in grainy Snapchat clips passed between friends at 2 a.m. Then a brief kiss, and Bianca walked a few paces toward the steps. That's where the footprints and chalky dust began, 2 pairs side by side, hers light and quick, his heavy and deliberate. No one heard the scream. But the next morning, when I stood beneath that same marble dust stairwell, the crumpled note in Ms. Davis's hand made sense. They'll never understand. I'll show them. Not a declaration of artistic flair, but a threat, a promise to force the world, including Bianca, to see him as he saw himself, betrayed and abandoned. In the hours after the murder, Utica's social feed split in two. Teenagers mourned Bianca's friendship and talent, sharing cover songs from her YouTube channel. Trolls circulated the stolen body photos, sparking disbelief and fury at platforms that let such images spread unchecked. State lawmakers, watching the outrage swell, drafted emergency legislation to criminalize the sharing of crime scene imagery, a direct response to the very note Brandon left behind. When darkness fell again, the canal steps stood eerily silent. The footprints had faded in the rain, but the scars on Bianca's circle of friends would last far longer. In the next part, I'll trace the FBI's rapid involvement, the evidence that broke the case, and how one reporter's persistence helped push Bianca's law across the finish line. By late afternoon on July 14th, the Utica Police Department had called in the FBI's Behavioral Analysis Unit. I watched agents swarm the station house, clutching laptops and portable forensics kits, as local detectives briefed them on the digital trail left by Brandon Clark. His phone's GPS pings had placed him at the canal steps at precisely 2:03 a.m., the same timestamp embedded in the geotagged photo of Bianca's final moments. That single data point cracked the case wide open. FBI digital forensics specialists began extracting Clark's cloud backups, recovering deleted messages and browsing histories. They found a folder labeled, "They'll Never Understand," containing drafts of that crumpled note, selfie-style videos of Clark practicing his final statement, and a draft checklist titled, "Make Them See," with checkboxes next to victim names. Those items, once pieced together, revealed Clark's motive, a twisted desire for vindication against perceived betrayals. Meanwhile, Utica PD cybercrime analysts used reverse image search to track the body photos spread across social platforms. They pinpointed 15 public accounts that had shared the graphic images and dozens more lurking behind privacy settings. The frenzy of retweets and reposts created a chilling echo chamber, amplifying the horror far beyond the boundaries of Oneida County. Within hours, the FBI issued subpoenas to all the platforms involved, demanding removal of the content and preservation of user data. Back in the newsroom, I filed a story headlined, "FBI Joins Hunt as Social Media Fuels Outrage." My source inside the Behavioral Analysis Unit told me that the rapid digital response had given investigators leverage. Users who reposted the images unwittingly provided IP addresses, device fingerprints, and connection logs that corroborated Clark's timeline. Under that pressure, 3 individuals came forward with raw footage they'd captured on their phones, showing Bianca and Clark arguing on the steps, evidence that backed up Clark's confession. But the most profound shift came not in the courtroom, but in Albany. Within 24 hours of the first viral image surfacing, state legislators fast-tracked Bianca's law, making it a felony to share or possess graphic crime scene photos of minors. Governor Cuomo signed it into law on July 18th, marking one of the swiftest legislative responses to a single criminal act in New York's history. I covered the signing ceremony via live stream. Lawmakers spoke of protecting victims' dignity, while advocacy groups praised the bill as a necessary shield against digital exploitation. That night, I returned to the canal steps bearing Bianca's sketchbook, her own drawings now a symbol of her stolen potential. I laid it beside the chalk footprints, now washed away by a light summer rain. The digital world had moved faster than the tide, condemning Clark and curbing the viral spread of his atrocity. Yet as I stood there in the mist, I wondered how many more Bianca Devins it would take before we learned to temper our clicks with compassion and remember that every image shared carries the weight of a human life. By the time Brandon Clark was discharged from the hospital late on July 15th, the full weight of his actions had already been laid bare in court filings, social media uproar, and Bianca's law hearings at the state capitol. I arrived at Oneida County Jail just before dawn to witness his formal arraignment, a nationwide live stream capturing every grim detail. Decked in an orange jumpsuit that hung loose on his gaunt frame, Clark shuffled into the courtroom escorted by 2 bailiffs. His once confident swagger was gone, replaced by hollow eyes that flicked from the judge's bench to the gallery, overflowing with Bianca's friends and supporters. I took my position behind the press rail, notebook open, knowing this would be a key moment in the story's evolution. Judge Mary Ann Trask read the charges: second-degree murder, unlawful possession of a weapon, and multiple counts of endangering the welfare of a child. When asked to enter a plea, Clark's voice cracked as he muttered, "Guilty," barely audible above the hush that fell over the room. His admission, uncommon at such an early stage, set off a flurry of legal logistics: no bail, automatic transfer to maximum security holding, and a court order sealing certain evidence to protect Bianca's surviving family from further trauma. I approached Clark's defense attorney, Marcus Lee, after the hearing. Lee spoke guardedly. Mr. Clark accepts responsibility and wishes to spare the victim's family further anguish. We'll work toward a fair sentencing hearing. Lee's carefully measured words contrasted starkly with the raw grief on display elsewhere in the building. In the hallway, Bianca's mother, Susan Devins, clutched a faded photo of her daughter, pastel-colored hair, laughing eyes. She refused comment, her trembling lips forming a silent vow. No more images. Back in the press room, I reviewed the day's filings: Clark's suicide note, CCTV stills from the skate park cameras, the crude make them see checklist, and a police report documenting Clark's panicked texts begging Bianca to delete everything. These documents painted the picture of a young man driven by envy and rage, invoking social media metrics as proof of worth, and turning his personal vendetta into a public spectacle of violence. Across social platforms, conversations shifted from outrage to reflection. Did I share too much? Readers asked. Could more friends have intervened? Bloggers dissected the timeline of posts, arguing that subtle early warning signs, obsessive comments, sudden disappearances from group chats might have saved Bianca's life. Meanwhile, public service ads urging digital empathy began cropping up on commuter billboards and subway screens. Think before you share. As evening settled over Utica, I retraced my steps to the canal steps one last time. The rain-worn brick gleamed under a single street lamp. The chalk outline was gone, and Bianca's sketchbook had been returned to her family. In the dim light, I realized the story had moved from crime to consequence, how one relationship's tragedy triggered legal reform, community reckoning, and a sobering reevaluation of our online habits. Tomorrow, I'll be in Albany covering the first sentencing hearing. Brandon Clark faces a minimum of 25 years to life. The judge's remarks will resonate far beyond central New York. And while justice inches forward, the broader cultural trial, the one that holds all of us accountable for the images we consume and the empathy we withhold, continues without pause. The sentencing hearing for Brandon Clark began on September 10, 2019, in Oneida County Court. I arrived early, squeezing into the crowded gallery beneath portraits of past judges. A hush fell as Judge Mary Ann Trask took the bench, her robes swishing like a thunderclap. Across from her, Clark sat at the defense table, head bowed, hands clasped, eyes vacant. Prosecutor Elena Vance rose first, her voice steady and resolute. This court must send a message beyond these walls. A life taken in cold blood, then paraded online, demands the harshest penalty available. She reviewed Clark's confession, the Make Them See folder, and the unrelenting social media carnage that followed Bianca's death. Each exhibit underscored the depth of his betrayal, not just of Bianca's trust, but of the public's sense of decency. Clark's own attorney spoke next. Marcus Lee's tone was measured, almost soft. Mr. Clark accepts responsibility. He has already paid a price in public scorn and remorse. We ask for mercy in light of his youth and the mitigating factors of his mental state. Lee called no witnesses. The defense relied on Clark's guilty plea and the judge's discretion. When it came time for Clark's statement, he stood with difficulty, voice fractured. I never meant to kill Bianca. I only wanted her to feel what I felt, hurt, betrayed, unseen. I failed. His words hung in the air, a twisted echo of the promise in his note. Across the courtroom, Bianca's family sat, faces composed, eyes red-rimmed. Susan Devins pressed a folded photograph of her daughter into her palm, knuckles white. Judge Trask's sentencing speech was concise but unflinching. She addressed Clark directly. You exploited a child's trust. You weaponized her image, turning death into spectacle. That you plead guilty, your actions speak of premeditation and cruelty. Trask invoked Bianca's law, emphasizing how the digital aftermath magnified her suffering. Then she pronounced the sentence: life in prison with no possibility of parole for at least 25 years, the maximum for second-degree murder in New York. A collective exhale filled the room. Clark's shoulders slumped, and the bailiffs escorted him away. Outside, reporters scurried for reaction. I found Susan Devins on the courthouse steps, flanked by friends and local activists. She spoke haltingly, her voice hollow yet firm. "This won't bring my daughter back, but it means nobody else can hurt her again." Supporters murmured their agreement, pressing red roses into her hands. Back at the Tribune newsroom, I drafted headlines. "No mercy for murderer. Clark sentenced in Bianca Devins' case, and new law tested. First conviction under Bianca's law." I reached out to legislative aides, who confirmed that 3 social media platforms had already removed thousands of posts and begun cooperating with prosecutors. Yet, among the relief, a deeper question lingered. What about the bystanders who first shared those images? Several teenagers faced misdemeanor charges, their stories diverging from tragedy to legal cautionary tale. One young woman, a classmate who'd reposted Clark's photo, told me, trembling, "I didn't think. I just clicked." Her remorse echoed a sobering truth. In our digital age, impulse can be as lethal as any knife. That evening, I drove back to the canal steps one last time. The crumble of graffiti underfoot and the distant hum of late-night traffic felt like witnesses to a story both ancient and all too modern. I placed a single red rose under the spot where Bianca's phone had lain, then stood in silence as the river's gentle current whispered beneath the streetlights. Tomorrow, I'll file my final report and move on to the next assignment. Another case, another headline. But I'll carry Bianca's story with me, a reminder that in every digital footprint lies a human life, and in every click, a choice.